Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first episode of the Quentin Tarantino Retrospective.
Quentin Tarantino.
I am Mr. Pig
Phone
Trasnell.
I am the Diddly Die Joe. What is it? Diddly Die Joe to the damned if I don't. Dylan Muss.
Damn, that's a tongue twister.
Yikes.
My favorite line in the movie. And
I'm
fucking bailed on
what's
it.
that?
hard.
I'm
not
gonna throw
gonna
down
take
that the one that most people won't pick up on. The young Turco, Tyler Briggs.
Okay.
I am K Billy, coming to you live from the Geekverse podcast.
Very good.
That's a good one. I thought we were going to do more of the colors, but I guess I was alone on that one.
Yeah, I actually
thought
didn't
about it,
hear
but
you
since
because I
you'd
saw my
already
mom
done it,
calling me.
And I
Shouts out to
couldn't
mom.
pick a
Shout
color
out
that
to
I
Mom.
wanted to be in time, so I just fell back on the Turco.
I just thought I was going to have to fight for Mr. Pink, so I'm happy. So, ladies and
I
gentlemen.
thought that would be the last
I
one.
wouldn't fight for him. He's pretty
Yeah.
racist, so.
They're all kind of racist.
They're all pretty racist.
Yeah, but he's
It's a
like
period
he's the
piece.
most like
It's a
outwardly racist.
It's a period piece. It's in the 90s. It was a period piece back then. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't guessed by the title or nicknames, we are
Or
doing
Travis's
a
shirt.
Tarantino. Well, for the viewers, nice Reservoir Dogs action going on there. We are reviewing every single Tarantino movie that he has ever done. Because even with Hateful Eight, we were doing the cast, but we never reviewed it as a group or anything like that.
It was a
we all
different
just-
time in the Geekverse.
Yeah, we all just talked about it separately. So, in honor Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, we will be reviewing that. So this is going to be building up. You can get these all early on Patreon. And if not, I think just because the amount of time that's left, I think that these will be dropping 2 every week instead of 1 a week. Just because
We gotta ham them out.
we're cutting them pretty close. But on Patreon, you can just get them right away. Boom, boom, boom.
yeah.
And if you want audio, because our newest audio subscriber, or our newest Patreon subscriber for the first time asked audio, please let me know and I can get you the link. It's mostly just SoundCloud, but I'm working on some other stuff. But I can get you audio or video. So we are going to be doing Reservoir Dogs first. We're going to be going in order. I guess I could read a plot synopsis quickly, and then we can get in this.
Please.
When a simple jewelry heist goes horribly wrong,
Uh-huh.
the surviving criminals begin to suspect that one of them is a police informant. Boom.
That's pretty much it, really, if you break
Yeah.
it down to simple,
Very
Oh, yeah.
simple
matter
movie.
of factly.
Oh, very simple movie.
Very
yeah.
matter of factly.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, what do you guys think?
I love this movie. I'm a big fan of it. I saw this after Pulp Fiction. I think Pulp Fiction is kind of everyone's back then intro to him. And then once that happened, I was a big film connoisseur, so I had to watch this and this and this. This movie I love, and just like that, it is a simple premise in here. I love the approach of... Obviously, it's become a gimmick nowadays, but back then it was him doing this. Okay, we're going to start at the end and work our way through it, and it's actual people. As far as you could say, the 3, as far as Mr. White, you see he is a maybe who was a good guy that got steered wrong way. You got Mr. Blonde, who's just a piece of cover cop, but he's not becoming a criminal, but he does criminal act. I think between the dialogue and the acting, you get enough of that. I think most of the performances are great. Films that when I started really enjoying dialogue, that's what Tarantino's all about. And this movie opened and it all works. And from there on out, you're just, to me, strapped in. There's not that much action. There's about the weed and everything like that. And just the way they do that shot of going around the bathroom and the coffee, because there's this moment like when he hits the blow dryer and it's just like,
Oh, I love that.
Like,
All
it's
the cops
really-
stare at
it's
him.
really indie. And I'd say this is probably but lots of movies after this are very humorous. I feel this has humor in it, but it's a serious one. And I think obviously when we finish this, we'll probably do a rankings episode and rank the movie, and you can see why he had the hype of the town when this premiered. So
Very good. Except for
Jackie Brown
at this point. But most of them I watched last year, like this one.
Wow.
So,
That was the same with me, actually, for Reservoir Dogs. I didn't
Mhm.
watch it till 2018.
And Bastards, Pulp Fiction is one of my favorite movies of all time. And this movie is really interesting as well. Like Travis said, it's kind of like specific characters and get backstory on them. And it's just really well paced, like the whole way through. And it's an interesting heist movie because it's just like the aftermath of the heist and then like
Yeah.
a little bit before. So you don't actually really get like that main action scene, but instead you just kind of get descriptions. But it's fun because every character kind of has their different descriptions of how it went. Like obviously it starts with Mr. White describing what went wrong, and Mr. Pink's like, oh no, this is actually what happened. And then Mr. Blonde is kind of just doesn't really give a shit anyway.
it didn't go down that way. He touched the alarm. And
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's really fun to see like these different characters playing off each other. The acting is really interesting. It's funny that this movie is kind of comparing it to other Tarantino movies. The one that's most similar to would be Hateful Eight, actually.
100%.
Because of the classic whodunit, the fact that most of it takes place in like one room.
It
and
feels
then,
like a play.
And then even like,
Yeah.
you know, both Tim Roth and Michael Madsen as the only like two recurring actors between the two movies. But it's a lot of fun. Like I said, since this is the only second time I watched it was yesterday when I was catching up for this. I kind of forgot a couple aspects of it because it's still kind of new in my mind, and I love that sequence with Mr. Orange. It's so well done. I love the section where he's just with the acting coach, which is obviously where that nickname I butchered came up with. I love that character. He's so funny watching those two interact, and like the progression of it, how it starts with him like just hearing about this idea of learning this like script and then practicing it and then like showing it in action, and the way it goes back and forth between them is just so well done. This movie is a lot of fun. Definitely, I think the first time I watched it, I don't want to say let down, but I didn't put it like on the tier of your Django's and Glorious Bastards, Pulp Fiction. But I think now after a second watch, I think it's definitely up there. Probably slightly below those three, maybe. But originally I think I had it above Death Proof, and I don't know. I'll have to rewatch Death Proof in a couple weeks. But I think this one could be above that one now that I rewatch it. Fantastic movie.
Yeah.
I also like the way the music is used. The way it will like cut, like just become louder if it's present in the character scene, and then it kind of fades out. And just like the music choice in general is a lot of fun. And the DJ that kind of is used as like a couple fade from black.
Yeah.
It's really really fun movie.
Yeah. This is my I think second time watching the film. I watched quite a while ago. I can't remember exactly when, but it was before the Geekverse, I'm pretty sure. I'd watched Inglourious Bastards and Django, I believe, and then I'd watch Reservoir Dogs after that. And I enjoyed this movie right away, but I think I enjoyed it for different reasons than watching it the second time through. Now that I've watched films a lot more and I think about them a little bit more critically. But yeah, a lot of the dialogue, it really just stands out as Quentin Tarantino is just a master of dialogue, and he makes you, as you said, it's a heist movie without a heist, yet with the dialogue and the characters, he makes you feel like you've experienced the heist nonetheless. The way the character described them, and they kind of, not necessarily reenact, but the detail they talk about it with, it's not like a huge amount of detail. They don't go through every little thing, but as with the script that Mr. Orange needs to memorize, each character points out little details in the heist that makes you feel like you were there and you experienced this huge event that we are now watching the aftermath of. And the way the characters, the acting overall, I'd say is pretty wonderfully done. And overall it's just a great film. The dialogue is really what stands out to me, and I love that it feels like a play in that there's basically like 3 settings. Oh yeah. And it's just pretty much 100% dialogue.
Even the way people like come in and out of the room feels exactly like a play if you've seen it. And
definitely.
And it's just even where the camera is. It's definitely because it's like a budget thing, and like he's doing what he could do, but he made it work.
He doesn't make it feel like it's a low budget movie.
Yeah,
for sure. And then I just got to shout out that whenever it zooms in on the cop's ear after it's being cut off, that still bugs me. Nasty. Still makes me uncomfortable.
Oh yeah. I like that they hide it for the first little bit too.
Yeah,
they never zoom in on until Blonde is dead,
and they don't show like him actually cutting it off.
Yeah, so you kind of think, oh, they're not going to show that low budget movie. I get it, and then it's just like
the
boom,
lobes,
bam, right in your face.
Yeah,
and then Pink's just like looking at it, staring at it. It's like, holy shit.
It's like about to throw up.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely the second time I've seen this. Kind of following the pattern. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how many times Travis has seen it. Probably.
I've lost count.
Okay.
15,
That's
20.
fair.
I think the first time I
flex.
saw this was like 2002, so it's been in my life
a good
for
minute.
quite a while. Yeah.
No, I really really love this movie. You guys already touched upon a lot of the positives that I was gonna say. Like I love the uniqueness of this heist movie without the heist. Right? It's like he shows us everything like basically without the heist itself, and yet that's enough. And just the way the dialogue was able to carry this movie without even like big action scenes. Like sure there was some gunfights that happened, but like other than that it's basically all dialogue, and I didn't need any more than that. Like it was just so well done. I loved all the actors that they had in this. Great acting. There was a lot of scenes that just seemed like it was pretty long of a scene, but it was all dialogue, but yet it didn't feel like overly long.
Yeah.
It was really smooth. Like the actors were just funny coming off each other. Like it was very serious, high stress moments, but yet it'd still be funny to a sense. And there was like the gruesome like torture scene. That's by far my favorite scene in this entire movie. Just just like the whole way that like when the rest of the gang leaves and then like he just like gets up, he's like, well, about time, just the two of us. And then it's just like the way that like the tension builds up and then he turns out, he's like, it's like a reoccurring line that he says too. It's just like, have you ever heard of K Billy's blah blah blah, like the radio station?
Oh yeah.
And he puts on that song, he's dancing, just totally messing with this guy.
Yeah. It's kind of funny too because, and I feel like in a lot of movies when he exits to go get like the gas or whatever, you'd expect like, oh, maybe the cop like breaks loose, but then you come back and he's still just tied up.
Yeah, I was just gonna shout out that scene. I love how it has like the camera follows him out, the music fades out, he gets the can of gasoline, comes back in, and the songs it had basically just kept going.
Yeah,
and then you jump back in into the scene. It's so good.
That's one of the major parts of why I just love that scene so much. Is like there is comedy in it, but like at the same time he's so psycho. And then like you mentioned, like when the camera follows him, and then the music dies out because you can't hear it when you're outside the building, and then it cuts back in exactly where it was. I just love all like the cinematography, like the shots that Tarantino used in this.
Yeah,
there's certain. I think it's when Pink's talking to Mr. White
in the bathroom.
No, when
he's in their warehouse and the camera's kind of like a little ways back, and it's kind of falling like you're a person in the room.
When he asks for a smoke.
No, it's when
maybe we'll let him talk.
Just let me talk. I know what scene it is. No, when he basically like they're coming to the conclusion that they're just gonna drop off Mr. Orange at the hospital because that's what he really wanted. Sure, he'll get arrested. Blah blah blah, and then Mr. White realized that he like told him his name and all these things, and then the camera's just zooming in on him. Like Mr. Pink's talking the whole time, Mr. White's not saying anything, but it's just zooming in on him, and it just gets all close, and then he just like comes to the realization that like he can't do that because he knows things about his personal life and all these things. It just like just those little like zoom in moments.
It's funny you mentioned that because that's kind of how the movie fades out too with Mr. White as well.
Yeah,
zooming in on him like almost about to take the shot.
Exactly. Like, and he's not even talking. He's like kind of sobbing, really like it's just sad that he just like he was so wrong in his judgment call. But I don't know. A lot of just the way that the camera shots are chosen. My second favorite scene is definitely the one you guys mentioned with Tim Roth in the bathroom, like when he's telling the story about like it's so funny, just all the cops, and then when he hits the blow dryer, it just like puts that like it is a made up story, but like it just puts that tension that like all the cops are just staring at him.
Personifies what he learned, that you have to add those little details.
Yeah, exactly, and like just those little things, how like these people are trying to act while acting, like it's just the way Tarantino can write that, and it just like it's so seamless, like it just feels real. It's just
that's something that his movies do a lot, where it's almost like fourth wall stuff, where he's taught, like I'm sure that tipping scene as well, like I'm sure he had that thought, or talked to someone who had that thought, right? And it's the same thing where like he does that in his movies. He's adding all those little details to make things more believable, just with like mostly with like character things, like characters always in the background, even if they don't have a line for a while, like they're purposeful or they're acting in the moment. They're not just sitting there like as a passenger. And that's something that Tarantino does so well. So I love when he has those scenes where it's like he's clearly talking about like himself in a way, and that's why I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is going to be so much fun, because it's about like an actor and like directing and stuff. Yeah, exactly. So that'll be really cool to see how like some of the conversations that are had from his perspective.
If you think this movie is meta, that's going to be the most meta movie he's ever done in his life. So.
And then the other scene you guys already mentioned is just like the intro like monologue where Tarantino's just telling the story of Like a Virgin. It's just like it's such a good like intro to the movie, because it's not like explaining who these guys are, like how they know each other. It's just right into it. They're just bullshitting in the cafe, and it's just, I don't know why it works so well. It's like a perfect like mood setting for the movie. They're all just like, I don't know, just very vulgar words, but it's just really awesome dialogue, and they're just throwing in so many details. I loved it.
Yeah, it's great. He does a really good job of making the world itself just feel believable, and just building up the world around these characters, the experiences they've had outside of this particular heist, and each character sort of has something going on for them, and you literally have this film with like 3 rooms, but you feel like there's this really big world all around them. You've got Joe and Eddie, who, when they're sitting down with Mr. Blonde, they're talking about like, oh, how they can set him up with a job. They put so much emphasis on this parole officer that it just isn't in the movie.
Yeah, you don't
all.
even meet him at all.
And he just adds these details in to just using only dialogue too, and it just builds the world, makes everything they do believable, adds motivations to the characters with basically minimal work, by basically just writing like 2 lines, and then now you know so much more about this character, about their motivations, why they're doing this job, and sort of like who they were as a person before the events that take place.
Yeah.
And also I just realized something when you mentioned the action scenes that I just realized is kind of interesting is when you think of an action scene, the point of an action scene is kind of like build tension and like, oh, like what's going to happen, and like this high stakes sort of thing. But every action scene that happens in this film, you already know the end result of said scene. You know where the characters are going to end up after the scene, and it pulls a lot of the punches that movies would have in action scenes, because you know Mr. Orange is going to get shot, so when he does get shot, it's like you expected it to happen. You know Mr. Pink, when he was running away from the cops, you know he already shot his way out, and those sorts of things. And it makes, I'm not really sure how to say it, but I never realized until just now, but you look at the action scenes, the way you like just see them as a viewer is different than you would watch an action scene from, say, Avengers, for example, because you already know the end result of said action set piece, and it's a different way to sort of like experience the action scene.
I guess he explores other things with those scenes. Like the one that's so interesting about Mr. Orange is you have that moment where he shoots that lady back, right?
Yeah.
And that's like, I kind of forgot about that until I was watching it again yesterday. That's pretty shocking. You have to wonder like how important this jewelry heist, like I guess it was probably to get Joe. That was probably the whole point of this.
Yeah. He basically like died for it, because remember when he was talking to the cop that got tortured, and he's all complaining. He's like, bring them in, because Mr. Orange was explaining that like cops were waiting
just down the block.
Yeah, and like he's there bleeding out, and yet it's not like, it's more important to get Joe than to actually like save his life. Yeah, that was such a great moment.
Yeah, that's
so it shows a lot about his character that he like shot that lady for this job, especially after just a minute earlier. I mean, it's maybe more important because he knew those cops that get shot, but like that scene really affects him. This when they're walking down that alley together, it just like the look on Tim Roth's face, like that whole scene is just fantastic.
Oh, he sells it.
It establishes so much about his character, just in facial expressions.
I think and the way they set up his character, how he seems like he's fairly new to the undercover cop sort of thing when he first meets with his handler or whoever whatever you would title him.
Acting coach guy.
Yeah, and so he seems like super excited about everything, and he's like, oh man, I have to memorize this whole script. He seems new to the business. And then he has like that scene with him talking to himself in the mirror, and it's kind of like that optimistic sort of feel. He's kind of still uppity. And then you get the scene where Mr. White just shoots those 2 cops in the vehicle. Oh yeah. And then immediately after that, he gets shot, and then I would imagine he didn't even think about it. He just shot the lady back.
That's the way I've always taken it. That he didn't even do it for the job. He just out of instinct shot her, and then was like, "Oh man,"
because he didn't want to die. And just like the way, as you just mentioned, Mr. White and Mr. Orange, they're walking after Mr. White had just killed those cops. It's like you can see Mr. White's like determined, and like he's like, we gotta do this job. We gotta get over here. And Mr. Orange just has no expression. He's just like completely in shock. And then after he shoots, as a cinematography, after he shoots the lady, it's just like the very slow zoom on his face and just still expression. And, it's so good. And then he's just losing his mind. And I think part of it is Mr. Orange, he's just kind of done with, he's done some messed up stuff. And it's like,
I feel like that's why he tells Mr. White at the end that he's a cop, because he kind of wants to die in a way, because he still took that woman's life, no matter whether it was for mistake or whatever he did. He killed her, and he's probably done some other stuff too. That was for the job, but it's just at his core now. He's never going to be that Freddy. He's never going to be Freddy the cop anymore, And that's why that scene is my favorite when he shoots her, because it's Tim Roth's acting and just that moment of Like, and I can relate to. No, I've never killed somebody, but it's just that moment of
risky words.
you have all these. Yeah, I know, that's why I had to preface this. You have all these morals and a code, and you're not going to do something. But then once it's done, it's not till after you're like, oh my god, like there's a certain line and you cross. You're like, oh, what have I done? And that's the same. He just tells it so perfectly with no dialogue or a line. And then because in the car with that and the fact that he's bleeding out, he's just losing his mind for multiple reasons.
Yeah.
And he probably thinks there's a chance that they might not even pull this whole, like, it might be for nothing, right? There's a chance that Joe doesn't even show up, so it's just there's it could have been all for nothing. So he's just going insane, and he's phenomenal at it.
Yeah, absolutely great.
I don't know, what do we want to do? Do we want to go down the story? Where do we want to go?
Well, I had a thought somewhere during that long string of tangents.
Boom, thoughts.
Going back to the opening scene in the diner. Obviously, it starts with that like awesome, just kind of camera angle going around them. But one thing, it was kind of what Briggs was talking on, how like the little details that are established just in that scene. And most of them are pretty much wearing the same costume except for Eddie and Joe. So it's interesting that just through that you kind of establishes that they're different, or maybe they're like who they're working
Higher
for,
up,
and then how they establish it with Joe. I don't think they ever say during that conversation like Joe's the boss or something.
No,
he just says I'm going to pay for it, and then obviously Mr. Pink has like this long conversation about why he doesn't tip, and then Joe's like tip, and then he just instantly
Just totally
does it.
reminded me of Taylor. That whole scene.
I'll only tip because you paid for it. But
exactly, I couldn't stop thinking of Taylor either. But
also,
it establishes that like exactly what that character's role is, and without having just like boring exposition, it's just like clever little things that fit in the conversation so perfectly.
Yeah, whether it's a heist or dinner, he's looking out for himself, and that's where I learned my rule. I do tip, but I tip based on how much water they give me. I took that from this movie. So if you fill my water up a lot, your tip's better.
I loved when he was going off. He's like, I expect 6 cups of coffee. He's like, you don't need any more cups of coffee.
Oh my goodness, so good.
He just has like such a rule to it.
Yeah, and it's like only filled my coffee up 3 times.
Yeah.
Like, it's just such an absurd. It's not the number you would expect. It's just like casually throws it in there, and it's like, oh man, great. Love the little humor
Especially
things.
a table of like 8 people. It's like, dude, come on.
And one thing I found interesting though, with you mentioning how it kind of displays the power dynamic amongst the group there, but then you've got Mr. White who just like nonchalantly just takes Joe's book away, and sort of like. How do you take on that? Because I'm trying to wrap my head around it, in that I was
it's established later on in their scene that they've known each other for a long time.
That's why.
As far as only going off the diner scene, I would say, it is Joe paying for everything, and like you do generally get the sense that he is sort of the boss of the group there. It's an interesting way they kind of flip it on his head with Mr. White taking his book, and it almost takes away from the original power dynamic, because it makes you wonder like who's calling the shots more between kind of White and Joe. And so I don't know, any thoughts on that?
I think it's just them like busting balls. I think they've known each other long enough. I think they're maybe still playing with you. I don't think you're not supposed to know Joe's power, because I think it's probably about 20 minutes later you get the first flashback of Mr. White and whatnot. But I think they're just trying to show. I think the idea was that they were trying to make that seem as normal as a possible situation. So if you think about the way, if you saw this movie for the first time, you don't know, especially way back, they didn't know it was a heist film. It's just, these guys around a table talking. So I think the idea was to ease you into it of, these feel like regular people. They're talking about pop culture. They're talking about restaurants, this and that. And it's just, because if you have him come in there and be really stern, I think right away that takes away from, these aren't normal people. It's a heist. So I think that's the idea of these are just normal guys. And then right when they're in the business, Joe is Joe. But if they're just having lunch, you can take my book, you can do that. Unless you're Mr. Pink, because, everyone.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think it would work from any other character. Like even Mr. Blonde, like, it's not like they were good friends or anything. They just felt like they owed him because he did those 4 years in prison for them. And even though it didn't sound like they knew him too well before that even, but they just, obviously are there to help him out because of what he did for them. Whereas Mr. White is clearly like almost like a family friend. Like you could see him probably going over for dinner, every once in a while or something, just going over for a drink. I mean, you don't really get that backstory on Mr. Brown. Obviously, I think is more like Tarantino just wanted to do a little bit of acting,
part of the film.
A little bit of acting.
I don't know how I feel about the inclusion of Mr. Blue as a character. He's you don't know like when he dies. You don't see that, right? And then he has such little dialogue. Like this, you could take him out. Like that's one of the only characters in a Tarantino movie where you could feasibly take them out and very little, if anything, would change.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Do you guys
nothing
agree with
changed.
that? Yeah.
Nothing changed at all. He's just kind of there. I don't know if there was cut scenes or whatnot, but yeah, I that character's always been a little pointless to me. It's just another. Like you said, you can take him out. He's gone.
Like you could imagine that maybe he was like the driver, or maybe he was the gun expert, or some reason. But it's like, do you really need that in any of this? I don't know.
He's not even on your shirt.
Is he?
I was looking at that. I can't see him on there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, isn't that guy like a felon? Like that actor?
Oh, is he?
I'm gonna look it up, but I'm pretty sure he like went to prison or something.
Spreading fake news over there.
I
without
honestly
fact
could be.
checking?
I probably should have checked that before looking it up. I'm just gonna go
Very
for it.
interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just, since we're on that same scene, I just want to quickly mention, going back to just like the little details that Tarantino throws in there, like when he's first explaining like his Like a Virgin stories, he like loses his like train of thought like multiple times, like when he's trying to tell that initial story, and there's so many other conversations going on, and he just keeps going like, what was I even talking about again? He's like, and then he's just like trying to get his thought back before he actually tells the story, and it's just like, it's so minor, but for some reason it just adds so much more realism to that scene, as opposed to it just being like a script that he's reading off, right? Like it's just he's trying to retell this story, and he just keeps like losing his train of thought, and like everyone's just busting each other's balls. I don't know. It just, there's so much realism that gets thrown in there, and I just tip your hat to Tarantino.
And it's really interesting in that just like the way Tarantino uses dialogue, because I would say for the most part, dialogue isn't necessarily supposed to be like regular conversation. It's supposed to feel like regular conversation, but it's supposed to be moving the audience towards, it has a goal at the end that is generally plot related and moves the story forward. Where, because normal dialogue in most film, like if you had a film of entirely just like regular people talking, it wouldn't, like, you wouldn't get anywhere. It'd be pretty boring, and there wouldn't be much content that's actually like
I have an update.
fulfilled. There's a lot of like people go on tangents, and people lose their train of thoughts, and then and conversation just naturally just go in like these huge circles, and nothing really gets done. And then it's funny to see that that's pretty much exactly what happens in that opening sequence. It's just like random dialogue that is actually like real dialogue without any plot purpose, and it's really cool to see,
aka Death Proof,
the way that Tarantino uses it like so masterfully. He doesn't make it feel boring, but it's straight up just regular dialogue with no really relevance to the plot of the movie aside from world building.
Yeah, and he's one of the only few directors too. There's like a rule in Hollywood movies: you're supposed to show, not tell. Right? We talked about the dialogues before, where he does little lines where, oh, this is explains that character's backstory, lets you know about the heist. But most of the time, you're not supposed to, because then you get caught in exposition traps. Or you get caught in a character just being like, oh, this is my backstory. He pulled it off so naturally, and the actors as well pull it off so naturally. It never feels like that, but that's where you can see in so many movies. I think we've talked about that many times, where it's just a character will be talking for so long, and either it didn't need to go on that long, or you could have done it a different way. So he's one of the only few that it goes against, you know.
It's really, I've been thinking about this whole time. I wasn't sure if it was the right term to use, but he really does just flip that on his head. And I'm a huge advocate for show don't tell in like 90% of situations, but the way he tells it is very indirectly. The character isn't bringing up this plot point for the sake of bringing up the plot point.
It feels like
it's just like the conversation just steers towards it naturally, and I like Tarantino's just absolutely a master at doing that sort of thing and making it feel like it just fits in naturally, and it's not something you see really anywhere else.
What's your update on Edward Bunker?
Edward Bunker was an American author of crime fiction, a screenwriter, a convicted felon, and an actor. So just kind of
I like how they just like put it in the middle.
It's the third one.
He redeemed himself so much.
I don't know when. I'm not going to do the full history, but I just, that's a pretty big claim to just throw on someone. But I want you guys to know that I backed it up by that is.
Thank you for fact checking yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because Edward
I don't really know what
Bunker's
it had to do with like his character not having much to do.
Probably not.
I think that's just one of those things people have. Like Tarantino, he's a weird guy, and it's the same thing where that's why we talk about retrospective in the future. I am interested to see how he handles Charles Manson, just because I already feel a little bit from these trailers. He's already like romanticizing him a little bit, and Tarantino does that a little bit with stuff, and that's the other thing. We were talking about how great this opening scene is. I think there's also a way of people that don't like Tarantino, right away from the start of Reservoir Dogs if you're going to like the rest of his career or not, because if you don't like the crude conversation, if you don't just like the 10 minutes of not like, there's no plot, there's no story, you pick it up, you can see, oh, this is the dynamic, but like we said, not really, because Mr. White and Joe kind of have more of a friendly dynamic. That's the thing, is same thing. If you watch first 10 minutes, love it, then you know, oh, I'm in this movie, I'm in for his franchise. The rest of these films and the rest of people that aren't fans of that, right away, oh, this is not for me, because it is that. There's no plot, there's no story. It's just a bunch of hubbubaloo and nothing. It's a bunch of swearing. It's a bunch of like womanizing conversations. So it's like right away, you know if you're in for it or not, because there is lots of people that they're not fans of that. And I can see why, because it is a taste, you know. It is very crude. It's in your face and it's loud,
and like a lot of the unnecessary, just long action scenes or gore and stuff.
Yeah.
I know that's why my dad doesn't like Tarantino movies.
And it's one of those films as well where it's so much about the content of the film itself rather than like the journey of the characters in a way, and that like there's everything in this film happens, nothing matters in the end. Like there's really isn't much of a beginning or like an end. It's just sort of it's just something that happens.
And I'd say other than Mr. Orange, no one changes.
Yeah, there's like no resolution or anything. It's just these characters are here and now they're not. And all right, neat. And it's just like a really interesting way of telling a story, I guess. And
because Mr. Pink is still like a little Weasley guy. Mr. Blonde's still psycho. Mr. White still is that like good guy criminal, but at the end of the day he's a criminal. So the second he finds out Mr. Orange is a cop, fuck you, I'm going to kill you. And Mr. Orange is the only one that has that resolution of, because when he's talking about how he's infiltrated Joe's thing, he's like very braggadocious about, and like,
braggadocious.
I've got in there, everything like that.
Word.
But you can see at the end he's not feeling that way. He may not care about anyone else, but at least Mr. White, who he's learned his name, he's learned a little about him. Obviously, I think it was in a different conversation, but they show that conversation that Mr. White and Joe had about how he was working with a lady, and maybe there's like some romance going on there, but that doesn't work with his career. So you can see that. We kind of assume that all the stuff we've learned about Mr. White that Mr. Orange has learned, wherever else it's just it's a name, it's a whatever, leave me alone. So other than Mr. Orange, they're all just criminals and they stay the same. Mr. Orange is like, well, you know, this is one criminal I kind of like, but you know, I gotta die, so unfortunately I'm a cop.
I'm a cop.
Very it's a weird way of telling a story. And
it's pretty unique.
Well, especially if you think back then too. If I don't know, I actually should go watch a preview for this. I should have done that before. I'm going to do that for the other one. Just I imagine lots of people. It was advertised as a heist movie, you know, and there's 20, 30 second, a minute of a heist, you know.
I never see the location of the heist.
No.
Yeah. And I remember when we were planning on watching just before watching it with Dylan, I guess the other night. I was thinking like, I don't remember the heist scene, but for some reason I thought there was actually a scene of them in the jewelry store, and you actually get to see Mr. Blonde like kill the people and whatnot. For some reason, and this is just like more like a compliment to how well Quentin Tarantino is, because I legitimately thought that scene was in the movie, and then I was like, wait a minute, it isn't actually in the movie.
They just explained it. So descriptive.
One thing that I noted this time around was when Mr. Pink is running away from it's like the scene of him escaping the scene,
running down the street.
It looks like they're running real fast. It looks like they're it must be just the camera work and like the motion of their running, but I was like, it felt like they were running like really, really fast.
Gotta go fast.
I can't say that stood out
like
to me,
exceptionally quick.
Okay.
Like it felt like they're just like blocks,
like Captain America running
by.
CGI sort of thing.
Yeah, like it felt like they were just
like in Infinity War and Black Panther and Captain America are the ones that can run faster than everyone else. That's Mr. Pink.
That's what Mr. Pink would be in front of them. Like they were running, and it must have just been the cinematography, like the angle and the speed of the camera moving with them. But it felt like they were just racing.
Steve Buscemi's a fast guy.
I got some trivia about that scene, how it was filmed, so it's pretty
I'm
fun.
excited.
I was curious about that because it is pretty big scale.
They had some troubles with that.
The shot's really wide.
They had some problems and obviously budgetary stuff. But I'm my favorite. I love Mr. Orange, but I love Mr. Pink so much. This was like, I can't remember. I think I'd seen Steve Buscemi in a few things. I think I'd seen him in Billy Madison, where he plays the guy in the basement that wants to kill all these people, and he's wearing lipstick on. So I'd always seen him in a few things, but this is the movie I fell in love with him. And I love, he's just so consistent throughout this movie. Even at the end, when all these people are dying around, what does he do? He just like slinks out and takes the jewels. Unfortunately, he gets caught by the cops, so it didn't work out for him.
Is he the one that shot Joe? Because I was trying to figure out that dynamic.
He has to do it.
White
shot Eddie.
Joe. Eddie shot White, and Pink shot Eddie.
No. Mr. White shot them both. This was
No.
something that's been going. You gotta go YouTube it, and they slow it down. You see him do it both. So he shoots Joe.
Really?
He gets shot once. He moves over. He shoots Eddie, and then Eddie shoots him again.
Okay.
Because for it's actually a like a continuity error. Because
It's
what
like a credo sort of thing.
yeah,
Greedo
because
thing.
what happened is the squib in Harvey Keitel's thing went off really early, so it made he was supposed to turn a lot more and make it pretty obvious that he shot Eddie, but it went off early, so he reacted. So Tarantino said he likes the mistake because for a while people were like, "Oh, who shot Eddie?" before we had YouTube, and really you can slow it down, but it is a mistake because Eddie is
This is what I was saying, Briggs. Briggs was like, no.
Eddie is jumping.
Pink definitely.
Well, it would make
Eddie
sense
is
that
jumping
Pink shot him
back.
as well,
Pink
but-
is holding his gun.
Eddie is jumping back before Mr. White has technically shot him. He like shoots Joe, he gets shot. He moves over. Eddie jumps back, and then Harvey Keitel does the shot thing. But it's because the squib it's exploded and he reacted to it. So for a while, Tarantino's like, "Oh, I just like that it's a mistake," and they couldn't back then. He couldn't redo it. It's like you got one of those and whatnot. So yeah, it's a mistake that they've. In legendary lore, if you YouTube it, you can get the slowdown of who shot Eddie. That was a big
That's
film
funny.
nerd thing on IMDb
I'll
boards.
have to watch that.
Yeah, because Mr. Pink was like hiding like under the ramp.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I always assume he was just like under the ramp and just like.
That's
For
what
a-
I thought
for a
because he was
while-
holding his gun. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
he's the one that did it.
For a while, a lot of people thought it was Mr. Orange getting off like maybe one shot to help him out, but that was proven wrong. So
Okay.
It
And
makes
if
the
you-
most sense for based on the shot's like right in the middle of his chest.
Yeah, and
like
if-
Pink
Pink is
It doesn't
under
really
a
make sense for him
and
to
Pink
shoot
is
that.
under a
Like you
ramp.
never see Pink go under the ramp. He
Yeah,
just
I
comes
know.
out
He
from
just
it.
goes there, but he is under the ramp. So
Yeah,
that's the
but
thing.
yes, but when you see him get shot, it's from like the angle of where Pink is from, though. So like you could justify it as Pink taking that shot, and then you wouldn't see until later that he
He's
pops
pretty
out from
deep in that
underneath.
ramp, you know, because when they go there,
well,
You
you
don't know
always
that,
see
though.
him like peeking, and he has his gun out.
Yeah.
maybe.
No, it's
But-
confirmed.
Yeah,
I honestly don't think I even picked up on that the first time.
I
And
definitely
then
picked
the
up. It
second
was like
time,
it was
I
like a
just,
problem
like-
for me. The first time I saw, it, I was like, "What is this? Like, it doesn't actually make sense."
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, it does. Yeah, it doesn't because it's
Yeah.
a mistake. So people, if it's supposed to be like, oh, it's really artistic. No, it's
Yeah.
just they fucked up and they rolled with it. And like,
Yeah.
okay,
Gotta do what
it's
you gotta
Mr.
do.
White, and
That's,
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Tarantino literally just intentionally leaves mistakes in the film.
Well, I don't think it was intentional. It was
he didn't
just
have a
like,
choice at
Yeah,
that
he
point.
didn't have a choice, but it's like
yeah.
I think he just justifies it.
I think
afterwards.
and I think it works in
Yeah.
that moment too, is because if you think about back then too, there's just so much going on, and you get 3 shots. You wouldn't went, oh, somebody could have shot him. Who knows? And nowadays,
Yeah.
when we can pause and pick
Yeah.
apart, but back then it's like, oh, who knows? Could have shot him. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
definitely one of my favorite scenes, though, when they all just pull the guns on each other, and Eddie's just yelling at him to put
Yeah.
the gun down.
then yeah, it's the same thing. Like I didn't know for a long time that Mr. Pink. I thought he got away, but he doesn't, because if you turn the subtitles on, that was the cue that I also learned looking in this years ago. If you turn the subtitles on, you hear indistinct shouting, and that's Mr. Pink dropping the jewels. And the
You
cop's
can-
like, "Put your hands up." He's like, "Okay, okay." You can hear it a little bit in the
Yeah.
background, but those
Yeah, you
subtitles
can hear a
help.
little bit in
And
the
yeah, Mr.
background.
Pink, I for the first time I was like, "Oh, good, he got away." No, he didn't get away.
No,
and then
yeah.
you could maybe make the case that he is Buddy Holly in Pulp Fiction. I don't know if he is, but it would make sense. He goes to prison, and we'll get there. But
Yeah.
he might be a waiter.
I
in
don't
the
know what
next
that's
one.
about.
What's
He has
his
a good
face
cameo.
mention Marcellus, and I think it's Joe. Maybe mentions
he's
Marcellus,
Because
or because
Mr. Blonde's
Mr.
character
White-
is the brother of whatever his name is in
Vincent Vega.
Vincent
Yeah.
Vega.
Yeah, I thought it was
Because,
Marcellus, but then I think the
or
name is not
Marcello.
Yeah, it's that because I
Yeah.
thought it was, but then I rewind. It's not Marcellus, but it is
But
in the same
it
world.
could be. Yeah, it could be
be.
there. Like they could still be referencing.
Yeah.
the
could be a
same
nickname.
person.
Yeah.
And I don't always believe it, but there's a fun fan theory that the thing in the suitcase is the jewels and the diamonds from this
Yeah.
heist. So
Mhm.
there, I don't believe that
I mean,
because
there's
I don't
a bit of
think
when
that-
they
believe
open the.
But it's
That
a
wouldn't
fun-
really make that much
Right,
sense
yeah.
that the cops would recover that, and then just the exact same suitcase with the exact same stuff would just end up
Mhm.
out on the street again.
Yeah, but there's some
You never
weird stuff
know.
that happens in these Tarantino movies. You
True.
know, he's lucky he didn't do it. But when he was gonna do Vincent, that was the thing. The Vega twins. He originally was gonna do a movie about
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
But the thing, and this is where Tarantino, I would believe him doing that jewels thing, is because the movie was gonna be that Vincent Vega had a twin of himself. And Mr. Blonde had a twin of himself, and it was about the movies of those twins being together. So it's just
Had a twin of himself is a weird way to put it, but I know what you're talking
yeah. So he's done some weird stuff. So
about. I just don't want that to be the case because I love in Pulp Fiction that it's just an
It's just a
ambiguous
mystery,
golden
yeah.
light. I don't want
Yeah.
that to change.
it's Infinity
I
Gauntlet.
agree with you.
It's Infinity Gauntlet. It could be the Soul
The
Stone,
Soul
same
Stone,
color.
yeah. What else? Anything to shout out?
This is pretty unrelated to the movie in
Nice.
its entirety. But Michael Madsen, I like that if you kind of reverse his name, it's Mads Mikkelsen. So
Okay.
Shouts out
I
to
kind of had that
Mads.
realization last
Hashtag
night.
save Hannibal.
Hashtag save Hannibal.
Shout him. I think this is his
Okay,
best
sure.
role. Because I think
I don't think I've seen him in anything other than The Hateful Eight.
in Kill Bill.
He's in Kill Bill as well.
Yeah. I can't remember what's his name. He's the one that buries the bride. I can't remember.
He dies to the
Oh,
snake.
right.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
He's a guy I really like. I feel like he's gotten his
Yikes.
acting has gotten like less as he's gotten older, but this is his best role. I think he does a good job of playing. He's a psychopath, but he's not loud. He's not trying to be a psychopath. It's just his eyes and his little like fuck you interactions with Mr. White are
and I love how
great.
little like information. I love how little he talks.
Yeah.
When people are asking him things specifically, except for Joe, then he'll answer
I
questions.
love when he's
but-
talking to Joe though, and like the camera doesn't go off of him, and he's just like smoking that cigarette, and I swear to God, he takes like 50 drags in the time
yeah.
that he's talking to
90s,
Joe.
baby.
Yeah,
And that's what I like. The two things I think that you kind of subvert your expectations are one with Mr. Orange being the one that is shot. At least for me, when I saw it the first time, you don't think he is the rat because it's just, well, he's the guy that was shot, so it
Yeah.
must be someone else that would get that plot point. And he is. And for me, up until you got Mr. White saying, oh, he lost his mind and he's talking to a nice guy, Eddie, when that scene with Joe, he seems like a relatively normal guy for like the criminal world. Like, yeah, him and Eddie are like wrestling on the ground, but it's all
That's really well shot as well.
I love
It's
that
a really
scene.
natural
He
fight.
come-
I
he-
love it.
he comes
Picks
off
him and
as
just throws him down.
he comes off as a nice guy, and then they set him up of saying, hey, you had 4 years, you could have ratted on us and you didn't. Like, they set it up in the criminal world. He is almost like Mr. White, where it's like he seems level-headed, he's friendly enough with these people, he just wants to get back to work with them, he's a loyal guy. And then when the movie progresses, you just see he's the one that shot up, he's cutting this guy's ear off. So I think it's a good way of they give you little hints of it, but when you first see him for the first 10 minutes of really getting into the story, you're like, oh, he's just kind of just another criminal, you know. But then as it goes
Yeah.
on, like, oh no, it's like, why'd Eddie
Yeah.
leave the police with this guy? You know?
Like when you're watching for the first time and you don't know who the rat is. Another reason why, like the first time I watched it, I didn't think it was Mr. Orange because you don't know how he got shot. At first, you think
Yeah.
it's the cops that
Right.
shot him. So it's
Mhm.
like, why would the cops shoot their own
Yeah.
people, right?
And you don't
And
learn that for a
that's true.
while.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Well said.
Mr. White never mentions how he gets shot either. It's
No.
just like, it's just implied that he got shot by the cops.
Well,
Yeah.
especially like Mr. Pink, he's like, well, even he could be the rat, and he's like, are you kidding me? He took a shot for us, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way. Yeah,
They do a good job.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm. And I like the characters that they selected to get their stories. I think those are the most crucial ones. The only thing that's always bugged me editing wise is I like the way the story's told, except for it's almost near the very end of the movie. They have the scene where they all get their names and they're arguing over that. I've never liked the placement of that scene because it's right after we found out that Freddy is the cop, and we're getting that, and then we just kind of take a pause for 5 minutes, find out about that. That's the only thing that didn't work for me in this movie. I like that scene, but I think it's something that could have come a little bit earlier,
Yeah.
like after that breakfast scene or anything. It's just weird to put it right
I
near
think
the
it
end.
would have to be after the breakfast scene because to that point you don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's just like them,
Yeah.
with the scene on your shirt, and then it's like it cuts to the, directed by Tarantino.
Yeah, and he's
the-
bleeding and everything.
Yeah.
The
That-
next, so yeah,
That's a really good point because I do really love that scene, and I didn't really like dissect it too much about like where it was, and it definitely seems clunky.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
because it's at that point of everything. I feel like in this movie we care about that's happening, but then when we get to that scene, I feel like I'm not caring because I want to get to everything else. Because
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
well, I know this guy's a cop. I know this guy's shot. I know Mr. Blonde's dead. So it's almost all the cards have already been revealed. I'm not learning too much. Other than I think maybe it's a nice way crescendo of kind of end it with the beginning. I think that's what he
Mhm.
was going for. But for me, it's always been a weird.
It
like,
also
okay.
doesn't really add that much in terms of character stuff because
No.
it's kind of just reestablishing what we know of Mr. Pink already of kind of
Yeah.
being an opinionated
I
guy.
Why
love
not gonna be
that.
Mr. Pink?
And
Why
sticking
can't it be
to
purple?
it, but he'll give up eventually. Yeah, we already know that though. At that point, it's from
Yeah.
the tipping scene and just I guess the interactions between him and Mr. White, like they're already well developed characters.
And Mr.
Yeah.
Blonde and then that's where before they held it, but then Mr. Blonde and Mr. White are having like bickering scenes as well in that scene, and that's where it's like, well, again, we already know this, and Mr. Blonde's dead, so
Mhm.
it's always been a weird scene. That's only my only negative. My other negative is the guy that plays Joe is not the greatest actor. It's a budgetary
Yeah.
thing, and I have it in the trivia. He was also fired 3 days after because Tarantino and the whole cast was complaining that he kept forgetting his lines, and you can see
And
that
he doesn't
it's-
even have that many lines.
No.
He probably had longer lines that just didn't work.
It just and then when I noticed it again this time, it's just there's a scene with Mr. White and he just gets up like, "Hey, how you doing?" He hugs him and it's just like everything feels so natural, and he does. I think he doesn't mind in the
that hug is really bad.
Yeah, just all the interactions he has with people isn't he's the one that's not fine tuned. That's where I think you can see, this is his first film, and this is where you can get some bigger stars, but you also have a limited amount of people you can do. And that's why you get like Bunker, who's a novel, things like that. So that's always been it has that indie feeling, like, it's an independent movie in the good ways, but then also sometimes bad ways. This guy's either past his prime or they're too new to acting. So I just shut that. So my only two
At least
cons.
they have Eddie in there as a character who can kind of explain things more for him in detail, and that actor's really good.
Yeah,
he did a really good job.
I love his like facial animations when he's just getting so heated. Yeah, he's like spitting almost, like the scene. I think it might be either when they're wrestling or when they're doing like the Mexican standoff, but he's just he's like sweating. He just seems like so
good close.
Don't you point that gun at my father?
He just seems like he's got high blood pressure.
That is, unfortunately, he passed away a few years after that movie, and he's the brother of
I was wondering why
Sean Penn.
he's the brother of Sean Penn, who is obviously 2-time Academy Award winner, one of my favorite actors. So that family has a lot of talent, and it's a shame because he's very good in this movie.
I could definitely see
really
him being brought back for other Tarantino movies as well, had he been around longer.
Okay, I was like, did you not hear the part?
I saw Travis about to interject there.
I don't think so, Dylan. Unfortunately not. That's why I've always wanted. I want to, after Once Upon a Time, Hollywood, us do a Tarantino draft.
Yeah.
And that's why I've never understood why Sean Penn's never been one, because he worked with his brother.
Sure.
Sean Penn's a really good actor.
Yeah.
So we got 10. We got one more chance, and that's why I really hope he doesn't do Star Trek, because I don't want that to be his 10th film. So
I think that's most of my notes personally.
Let's see. I'll pull anything up if I got. I said this in the pre-recording, but I love the line of just dicks. How many dicks is that? It's a lot.
Yeah.
And another thing I really liked how it shows the way of the criminal, because even Mr. White and Mr. Pink agree on this, that they're talking about that they had to shoot some people on the way out, and Mr. Pink says no real people, just cops, right? So it shows that in their criminal mind state that there's such different characters, but they can agree that cops are just this objective in their mind, and no real people though, which that's a lie, but it's just the thing is I love how they kind of agree on that. Like, it's just cops, so it's just it's almost how you feel in a way if you're playing a GTA video game, it's like, it's just a computer,
or like a game that you like lose points if you shoot a civilian, right?
Exactly. So I love that little interaction they have.
And I like how like Mr. Pink, he's so like he is very wired, but he's so on set of just being like the professional. Like he brings that up multiple times.
Am I the only one who's a fucking professional here?
Yeah. That's an interesting mention with the cop, and now I think about it, when they're all like arguing when Mr. Blonde first comes back in, and then when they see Mr. Blonde as a cop, it's something that they all kind of like not necessarily bond over, but
they're kind of laughing.
They all kind of like come together to
they're giddy
just
over
mess up.
They're excited.
And that's a really interesting note.
Yeah, and then
cool.
what was I gonna say? I love the part where Roth, Mr. Orange, is like, he was going to kill that cop, and Nice Guy goes, this cop, and he just takes the gun and just blows him away in front of everybody. And it's just like, and I like that little dynamic too, that cop did know that he was the undercover cop, and I love their little interaction of, I met you a few months ago, and Freddy's like, I don't remember any of that right now. It's like those little interactions are great.
Yeah, you already mentioned, but just when the cop's like complaining, he's like, he cut my ear off. He's like, I'm fucking dying here. He's just so pissed.
The only thing I don't like is when they ask Freddy, it's a little over the top if he's the cop, and he says, I swear on my mother's eternal soul.
I know,
And I was like,
that was a good line.
See, I didn't like it. I was like, all right, I feel like if you're shot in this much blood, I don't know. He sold it well enough, but it was like a little too high up there for me. But that's all mine.
Well, it felt like his character was like reaching, because he's clearly not thinking straight, and like he's not going to be that smooth undercover with a good witty response.
He was looking pretty.
I felt like he's reaching for whatever his brain can
almost
think
fits
of.
that it's bad.
And so I appreciate that it's bad.
It fits.
Because a lot of his dialogue from that moment, he says that, and like the next few things he say, it's all like pretty like really basic, like there's not a lot of nuance to it.
Yeah, even his story
it
about
just feels
how
like it's almost out of nowhere.
Yeah,
and it doesn't fit with the rest of his character, but it makes sense considering he's like about to die and everything's going to shit. There's this Mexican standoff going on now, and
even his story about Mr. Blonde, like, he was going to kill the cop, then he was going to kill me, and he's going to wait for you guys to come back and kill you guys, and he's going to burn down the place, and he was going to take the jewels, and and he told you all that, and he's like, yeah, I swear, and then he's just like, so the guy that didn't rat on me for 4 years is going to do all that. That's what he said.
Yeah. He's like, well, shit, I just got to roll.
And you can see Eddie does not buy it for a single second.
Oh, yeah,
and that's what I like. He's like a lughead character till he isn't. You know, they play him off as he could just be the dummy, but he's a smart kid.
Totally,
you know?
yeah.
He's
So,
business.
yeah.
Since we're on the top of Eddie, I love the scene too when he's going to the warehouse. Like he's on the phone, I think, with Joe, and he's just because he, like, obviously him and Joe like don't. I'm assuming they don't think Mr. Blonde's like a psychopath, like what he really is. So that's when he's like, he's got a cop in the trunk. He's like, yeah, I don't understand. Like he's just so like perplexed about like what's going on. He just doesn't fully understand because I don't know. They painted this picture of what they thought Mr. Blonde was because I don't know. Like we've already heard where like he served time for them. Like he handled everything pretty professionally until he did it, and he just went psycho. That's why, like when he's on the phone, he's just so confused. He's like, I don't know. Like it's just like he's just high strung, right? It's
You can maybe understand why he went to prison in the first place. Like
Yeah.
why he got caught. He doesn't think these things through.
yeah.
I hate alarms.
Yeah, I just love that scene. Then like Dylan already mentioned, like the wrestling scene in the office.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of my
so
favorite.
genuine.
Like it's
He like
so
reaches up
genuine.
to the chair, like falls over.
Yeah.
It's just so well choreographed.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like it just seems so real. Whereas like, okay, they kind of like land on a mat. Like it looks like he's gonna throw him down. And he kind of catches himself on the chair, and just like the way that the camera angle, it's not in the room. It's just like going into
Right,
it.
it's like in the hallway.
Yeah, it doesn't really move, and like Joe's just standing there. He's like, "Knock it off, you fucking blah blah blah." Like it's just, I just love like that realism to it.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it's acted. Like it's just couple kids like wrestling in the
Couple
backyard.
friends,
Like
yeah.
it's just, I just love that.
Yeah. And yeah, like it feels like if Joe didn't say anything there,
Oh, they would have kept going for
they would
days.
have just kept going
Oh, yeah.
forever. That was going absolutely nowhere. The movie was just at a wall there.
Well, they almost go back at it too when they
Yeah.
finally finish, and Joe's just like,
Yeah.
"Fuck that."
yeah.
When it goes to the scene, I might be wrong about this, but when they go to the scene when they're getting the names, that transitions from like them all in the car, right? And they're like they're talking jokes because I'm pretty sure they're talking
That
about
is
jokes,
later in
and
the
then it
movie, yeah.
transitions to Joe like saying like blah blah blah, you guys think are funny, like telling jokes
Right,
or whatever.
right.
But it's in a different scene. But the way that transitioned, I know we didn't really like the placing of that scene like in the movie in general, but just like that quick transition, I don't know. It's a positive from where that was in the movie.
That's a
I
good
think.
point. I don't think there's any strange cuts like from scene to
Yeah,
scene in this
no.
movie. It all really flows well, which is just a testament to, from Tarantino's very first movie, he already had like such a clear vision. It
Mhm.
really
And such
really
a
goes to
unique
show.
style that's
Mhm.
his, because like I remember when you were mentioning like if you watched a trailer for this movie like the first time, like you'd be like, okay, it must be a heist movie, and then if you go see it, you'd be like, what? Like
Yeah.
this is just
There's
so
no way you could have known what it
Yeah,
would be
like-
like.
like
'cause
it's
Tarantino
so-
was unique from the very
yeah,
beginning.
exactly. Whereas like nowadays, if we see like a weird movie like that, I know Tarantino is like a totally his own like
Mhm.
platform almost, or like genre of movie. But like if it's a weird movie, but it'd be like, oh yeah, this is kind of like Tarantino-esque of a movie.
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
back
Yeah.
then, there was no like this was his first movie, so like
Yeah.
what would you compare it to, right?
Yeah, Bad Times at the El Royale last year was very much
Yeah,
just like a
there- yeah.
Tarantino homage. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I'm trying to think what you could. I think the most you could compare it to is early Scorsese, who did like Goodfellas and
Yeah.
Taxi Driver, because he was known for really snappy dialogue. But this is more that down to earth stuff. But
Yeah.
like Joe Pesci and De Niro, they were always just like
Yeah,
that
that's a good
busting
point.
balls. But that's the only thing I think. But I think it's so much. It's just a whole different animal, But yeah, I gotta shout out my favorite line, that scene when they're on the car talking jokes, when they're just like they're kind of scouting and like, oh, what about this and what about this, and then he goes, what about that girl's ass? She'll be right here on my dick.
Yeah.
That's a good line.
I love just when he's like, it's getting like pretty brutal of like explaining like what you do in that situation, and then like you can even kind of tell like Tim Roth, he's like kind of unsettled, and he's like, fuck, I'm hungry, let's get a taco. Like it's just
Yeah.
like, it's, I don't know, it just totally like switches gear like so
Yeah.
quickly like that.
It's a fun transition.
Yeah.
That scene. Mm-hmm.
Any other notes, fellas?
No, I'm pretty clean.
I wanted to quickly mention, if you haven't actually like listened to the soundtrack of the movie, I think you should listen to like in order, because K Billy, he like
Mhm.
kind of narrates it, and he explains like the songs that are coming in. There's even some like quotes from like Tarantino when he's explaining like a virgin, like that whole story that's actually in one of the songs, I think. Or it might be like an interlude, and then
Yeah.
also like "Let's Get a Taco." That's another little skit
Mm.
that's in there.
Nice.
I think it's similar to what he did with Pulp Fiction too. It's like if you listen to the album in order, it's kind of like a radio guy's narrating it, and it's just really
Interesting.
unique. And I don't know, like you can enjoy it like the music, you can think about the movie and like those specific scenes. It's just really well done.
That's
on.
sweet. That brings up another point. It's that scene where Eddie is talking on the phone, and you can hear like the radio is happening in two separate scenes. Whoever he's talking to, I can't remember. It keeps cutting to and from, but like you can hear like quietly what song is going on, just like in his car radio, and then whatever. What is it cutting in between in that scene? Do you guys remember?
Is it him and Joe?
It's him talking on the phone.
Yeah,
I think he's talking to Joe, but then who is that? What are the scenes that it's cutting to? I think it is the warehouse because then the radio is still on there.
Yeah,
and you actually it must be that scene where
when he screeches up right with the car, and don't you hear it playing when he pulls up the car?
I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
I guess the point is like whatever scene it's cutting to, like the music is louder because it's just like full volume there, but it's quieter in his car and it's reflected in like just a really nice way to play off those two scenes together. So the music is really well done.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's utilized.
That's gonna be a reoccurring theme that I shout out in these Tarantino movies. I love like basically 99% of like all the music choices. It's just there's some classics on there.
Yeah, that's why Once Upon a Time. Oh, it's gonna be great. That's 69 music.
Era.
Yeah, already that Neil Diamond coming in. I'm loving it. I got some trivia here.
Sure.
The film's budget was so low that many of the actors simply used their own clothing as wardrobe. Most notably, Chris Pratt's tracksuit. The signature black suits were provided for free by the designer based on her love for the American crime film genre. Steve Buscemi wore his own black jeans instead of suit pants, fitting with the character, Mr. Pink, pretty much.
Nice. It really is.
And so this was what I was talking about when they're that whole chase scene, the bank heist, everything like that. The budget wouldn't cover police assistant for traffic control. So in the scene where Buscemi forces a woman out of her car and drives in it, he could only do that when the traffic lights were green. So they literally had to like time the scene to film.
That's awesome.
They couldn't get it stopped, anything like that. So all that stuff was probably filmed like very off the cuff, very like let's get this in now when we can. Let's get this while there's no people on the street. So
when you were first mentioned when Steve Buscemi grabs that girl, I thought you were gonna be like, yeah, that was a real person.
Yeah. That's a testament to how I guess just very skillful.
It's really like you're playing with the cards you're dealt, right?
Yeah,
like,
especially without having too many takes to like get that clean shot that doesn't feel like weird when you're watching it. You know?
Oh yeah. Let's see. During filming, a paramedic was kept on set to make sure Mr. Orange's amount of blood loss was kept consistent and realistic to that real gunshot victim. So that was nice to read because I always felt when I watched this movie, it was always a little too much blood. I felt there's no way to be alive, but they got a med there. So there you go. So
there's a scene that references that, I guess. I'm talking about like getting shot in the gut is
and the knee is
the most
most painful, but you could live the longest on it. But it is always just at one point there's just a pool around.
Yeah,
and I always been like, how is this still going?
Also in the back seat. I mean, I know most of it's just like it's not a lot of blood. It's just smeared everywhere.
Yeah. It's on the white seats. Yeah.
Oh man, it's like there's just every scene with Mr. Orange after he gets shot is just an uncomfortable amount of blood.
On that note, one little like nitpick I had with I mean I'm not really nitpicky, so I didn't let it bother me.
He hated this movie.
But like I love the line so much, but like the realism of it is when Orange is just like, I'm fucking dying here. Like that seemed like a belly scream, and like I don't know, like he looked pretty pale. He's lost a lot of blood. I don't know if he'd be able to like really scream like that.
Adrenaline, man.
I'm no doctor, but that just I could see him like flexing his core to yell that out. Right?
It's so intentional that I feel like it really just is meant to establish something with his character that he really just wanted the guy to shut up so he could say what he had to say.
I mean, I love the line. I have no issue with it. It's just like the realism of it. I was a little nitpicky with that. And also when he's like doing a push-up, trying to like get up or something when he's just bleeding out. But hey.
No, he spends a lot of time on that ramp.
According to an interview on the DVD, Michael Madsen says Kirk Baltz, who was the guy who played the cop who got his ear cut off, asked to ride in his trunk to experience what it was really like. Madsen agreed, but decided as he went along this was for the time of his own character development as well. So he drove along to a long alley with potholes, then to Taco Bell drive-thru before taking him back to the parking lot and letting him out. The soda he ordered and said at the drive-thru was the same one he could be seen drinking as his character's first appearance in the warehouse.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I already ate the fries.
Tim Roth, who played Mr. Orange, refused to read for this film. He did insist on going out with drinking with Tarantino and Harvey Keitel, and he agreed to read for them when they were all drunk. So I don't know why. He doesn't say why he didn't want the role, but I guess he just didn't want it at one point, and while they were drunk, they convinced him.
I'm glad he got it.
Nice.
There you
Oh,
go.
Yeah, the movie. It's hard to picture anyone else doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got some fun different. These are the last two trivias. These are all castings. Viggo Mortensen auditioned
man.
for a role. He read for a Hispanic character in a scene to be formed with Harvey Keitel. More than 20 years later, Tarantino offered him a role in Hateful Eight, but Tarantino couldn't commit due to scheduling conflicts, which is a shame because Viggo in a Tarantino movie would be
Oh,
something.
I
dream.
love that.
I'm,
Sean Penn and Viggo in a
Yeah,
I'm missing
Oh,
the
man.
face. I can't see it.
Aragorn.
Oh, okay.
Aragorn.
Mhm.
Green Book recently.
Yeah.
great
I
guy.
said Sean Penn. Get me some Christian Bale in there too. I don't know why it hasn't happened. And I'm Driver now.
He would have been really good in Hateful
Yeah.
Eight, actually.
Adam
now that I
Driver
think
and
about
Tarantino would be
Yeah, I think that needs to happen.
Wild.
Yeah.
it. Especially
That'd be
like seeing him
so
in Black
good.
Klansman.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know.
and
I feel
Logan
like
Lucky,
Yeah.
like he just
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be a
awesome.
perfect fit.
And then here's just a fun alternate history of a bunch of people that almost played a bunch of different roles. Tarantino originally wrote the role of Mr. Pink for himself. Steve Buscemi originally auditioned for the role of Mr. White. Michael Madsen
Wow.
originally auditioned for the role of Mr. Pink. George Clooney originally read for the role of Mr. Blonde / Vic Vega, but was turned down. And then Christopher Walken refused the same role.
Of Mr. Blonde.
Yeah, Mr.
Okay.
Blonde. Yeah, Samuel
Wow.
Jackson auditioned for the role of Mr. Orange. Once Tim Roth was cast, Tarantino originally wanted him to play Mr. Blonde or Mr. Pink, and yeah, that was about it. And then he had
Wow.
to play Mr. Right.
So they were already kind of pals back then.
yeah, and it just sounds like they auditioned because I can't remember. I didn't put in trivia, but they also offered Buscemi like two of the different roles. Oh, they offered him Nice Guy Eddie and Mr. White, which Nice Guy Eddie I could see. Mr. White I don't
No.
see,
No.
but you can just see that
What's the name of the actor that does Mr. White?
Harvey Keitel plays the wolf.
I'm not
in
too
Pulp
familiar
Fiction.
with him, but he's fantastic.
Bad
and-
Yeah,
Lieutenant. Yeah, he's a
great
great
actor.
actor. He does a lot of this type of cop or kind
Sure.
of brooding guy. But yeah, you can see he wanted to work with a lot of these people. They just didn't know where they wanted to place them all. Like they were getting all
Yeah.
swapped over. Like I'd love them nowadays to, if it wouldn't count as this film, to remake this film and have them do like, what would it be if Michael Madsen as Mr. Pink? You know,
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
such a weird thing. Or George Clooney as Mr. Blonde, which it's funny that like now it's like he got, they turned him down for that role and like to think where he is now. So it's funny hearing all that stuff.
Yeah, that's cool too, because that just goes to show how Sam Jackson's character in Pulp Fiction was specifically written for him, right? Because
Oh,
he
yeah.
knew he wanted to work. They knew they wanted to work with each other, and yeah, you can't like that character cannot be done by someone else,
Yeah.
right?
He's rocking the Reservoir Dogs suit.
Yeah.
I'm still
True. Very
getting
true.
nervous that he's not. We haven't seen him in Once Upon a Time.
Oh, if
yet,
anything,
so.
he'll be doing some voiceovers like he did in whatever.
He better
movie.
have a
Glorious Bastards,
cameo.
yeah.
He better have that or a cameo or something. If he doesn't, I'm gonna be pretty disappointed because that's it's the Stan Lee of Tarantino movies.
It's
since
true.
Pulp
Wait, is
Fiction.
he not in Reservoir Dogs? Or?
No.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he auditioned, but
Yeah,
he
no,
didn't.
he's-
They didn't.
yeah.
They didn't work out because I remember it's not in the trivia, but in this, Sam Jackson tells a story. He really wanted the part and he tried really hard, and they just didn't end up casting him.
For
But
Mr.
I
Orange,
think-
you said, yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
I think Tarantino was like, "I'm gonna work with you one day. I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm gonna work with you." It's the same reason as David Duchovny. He's not a big actor. He's in X-Files, stuff like that, but he really liked him and he auditioned. And he says, "I really like what you do. It's just not right for my movie." And then they never
Yeah.
worked together again. So he keeps people in mind. But
Yeah.
yeah. So no, he other than Reservoir Dogs, he's always been in one of them. So
Yeah.
I hope. I think so. Right? Yeah.
Is he in Death Proof? I don't think so.
Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong. And I'm trying to think who.
There's only like one male
Yeah.
character in that movie, so.
We'll update you when we talk about Sam Jackson next time. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I've said everything I need to. Great movie. I'm going to
Likewise.
9 out of 10. The only reason that is just a few concepts I'm placing. A few, like I said, Joe's not the greatest acting. There's some little lower budget things. But other than that, I think a 9 just because, yeah, that's how I feel
That's a
about
fair
it.
score.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a 1 out of 1.
Boom.
All
the
right.
perfect score.
I didn't know where that was going at
Well
first.
done, Dylan. Well played, sir.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and not rate it because
Not rated.
I smell that.
What is this, a hipster podcast?
Yeah, I'm gonna switch it up for the retrospectives, and yeah, it feels weird rating a movie that was so long ago, and when you compare it to like movies that are more recent, I guess in a way.
When's the last time we
And-
reviewed a movie from 92?
Oh, I don't.
Just
I
now.
don't think I have.
Have we ever?
So yeah,
Yes.
overall, I think it's
Batman.
just it is a wonderful film, and it's a film that holds up really well for how old it is, and it's just a testament to Quentin Tarantino's genius, and he's just the things like the way he just makes the movie work, the dialogue he has, and everything he does to make it his own, and really set forth this legacy that he has now. It's a great start off to Tarantino, and I'm really excited to talk about the next handful of films we've got coming up.
Have you seen Jackie Brown?
No, I've seen very few actually. I've seen
Oh right, yeah,
Hasn't
you've
seen
seen
the
it.
Kill
Reservoir
Bills,
Dogs,
Death
Inglourious Bastards, Django, and Hateful Eight,
You haven't seen Kill Bill? Oh, I'm so excited. for
and
Kill
Pulp
Bill.
Fiction. I've seen Pulp Fiction as well. But yeah,
Cool.
so
Exciting.
a lot of first ones for me.
I could hear that chomp audibly on the microphone. That's
Chain
great.
Chomp. That's
Chain
my interpretation. I'm going to give this one a hard 9 out of 10. Going with my counterpart across the
Hard
table.
9.
I was like debating whether it should be an 8 for a little bit, and then I don't know. I don't want to, because whenever I do these retros, I feel like obliged to kind of like rate them from like the ones I really really like to down. But like with Quentin Tarantino, I feel like a lot of my ratings are gonna be
We'll
around
do a tier
that 9.
list at the end.
I'm excited for
right.
that. And but there's a couple things I had like minor issues with. That's why I couldn't give it a hard 10. Plus, there's like my all-time favorite movies. I don't want to spoil my what I'm
What
going
could that
to
be?
be saying for later on in this retro. But
Interesting.
like if I compare this movie to some other ones, it's not quite on the same tier level, so I can't give it that perfect 10.
Mhm.
But I just really really loved it.
Mhm.
It's like all the cinematography, like the shots that Quentin Tarantino chooses. It's just like perfect in my mind, especially for a movie that had such a low budget.
Yeah.
They had to wear their own clothes. I just found out
Mhm.
today. That's pretty
Yeah.
awesome. And just the way that Quentin Tarantino can have the dialogue like paint the scene on its own and like literally make Tyler think that there was a bank heist just from
Yeah.
the stories of the bank heist.
Yeah.
That's just on a
That's
whole
great.
nother level in
Legendary.
my opinion.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to do the rest of these movies, and it's gonna be a fun retro. It's a
Mhm.
pretty good crew we got, minus Mr. Pink. Apparently he's gonna be joining us for a little bit.
Yeah.
Taylor's
He'll show up.
gonna join for 3. He said there's
For-
3 specifically he wants
Oh,
to do.
I thought you meant like the third.
I thought you meant like
Just Jack,
3.
he's a huge Jackie Brown
I
fan.
thought you meant like 3, and we're not gonna know which one. He's just gonna appear one day.
Sure.
Yeah.
No,
Like
I
mid
think-
cast sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he said one was Inglourious Basterds, one was Django, and maybe the Kill Bills. I'm not sure,
Okay.
but
Ooh,
we'll
that'd be
find out.
4.
He'll be popping out just like Mr. Pink. He'll be
Yeah.
in and out.
Not
but-
tipping.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we'll call him. We'll talk to him about that when he pops up. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we did here, head over to Patreon, and for $1 you get half these episodes. For $5 you get all of them and all the other great stuff on there. There's Hobbit retros up there.
Oh yeah.
I guess X-Men Retro's dead now, but you can go back and listen to that on the feed. Clone Wars Retro's up there, and there's always stuff dropping there. And just go subscribe to the description down below, whether you're on video or audio. You'll see the links for the podcast feed or our YouTube. And just subscribe, because right now in June, I know there's lots dropping in the past. There's still lots dropping in July. So if you want to get all these episodes and then some, do that. And if you like what we do, give us a rating. Please, on iTunes, if you give us a rating, give us a written one. We're trying to hit the 200, and the written ones are the ones that count. The stars help with our rating, but to hit our next milestone that we need to move forward, we need 200 written ones. So if you could do that, if you like that, please, we appreciate it. So thank you very much. We never made an outro, did we?
No, I think we'll come up with one as we watch the rest of these movies. There'll be some line that just fits perfectly, but
Yeah.
I don't have one for
I
you.
like I like Mr. Pink's line.
Say it. I forget it.
Go ahead, and we'll end on that. We'll just go.
This place is goofy. We got to book up.
Perfect.
There you go.
Best year yet.
Yes, yes, yes.